the darkest nights, we find our light. Battered souls, but we won't lose sight. Surviving together, never alone. Through every trial, we carry on. Surviving together, never alone. Through every trial, we carry on. Surviving together, we stand tall. United forever. Strength and courage will overcome. Surviving together, victorious. Never, never alone. Hand in hand, we'll face the unknown.
We see you, we hear you, and we believe you. Hey everyone, how you doing today? Happy Saturday. Welcome to Surviving Together in our SAS community here. We are a safe space for sexual assault and other trauma survivors to gather together, get some peer support, heal. Anybody who's interested in us, interested in learning more about trauma, gonna have to not say sexual assault in the first 60 seconds if I want to eventually get monetized. So I need to make sure I change my intro a little bit to that. Anyway, how's everyone doing? Sorry, my neck is a little sore today, guys, so I'm a little jerky. I don't know why. I gotta just switch back. Let's see. I know it's early going zones, but I have a dinner to go to tonight. So I want to make sure that we started on time. Let's see. Looks like so far we have Audrey here who is doing supper because she is over in Ireland, and Crystal is here. Wonderful to see both of you. Crystal finished her first full shift, exhausted. Oh, I imagine. I can only imagine. I'm really glad somebody helped you out, Crystal. That's wonderful. I remember when I was 16 and I started my first job, and it was working at Stuckady's. It was a retail department store. And even though I was only on my feet for like 4 hours, initially, oh my gosh, those first few weeks, I could scream. My feet hurt so bad. It didn't matter, flats, heels. It just was tough getting used to it. So you've done it before, and I know you'll do it again. You're going to get tougher and tougher, and you're going to be there for sure. I know it. Let's see. I'm just looking at my picture and I'm thinking the white is looking like really, really white now. Oh, that's so wonderful. It wasn't people helping you, your workers. It was like some of your favorite customers. Oh, that's so wonderful that you got to see them. Did they know you were going to be back to work, or were they just like surprised to see you? Like you were just there. That's pretty cool. That's really cool. Awesome. Well, we're just going to hang out for a few more minutes because I do know some other people are planning on joining us, and I don't want to repeat myself with what we're going to do today. But hey, statistics, not the most interesting subject for some people. What I found I was really interested in, because statistics, that's a hard thing, people are like, oh, throwing out numbers. Well, then you got to look, where did they get it from? Well, this person is 2015 data, this 2018 data, this 2020 data, where are you coming from? So got to be careful when you look at these things. DeAudrey, I'm right with you. I completely understand now, especially being on my feet for too long. I definitely will start feeling it up my whole body, and sitting is my nemesis. That is where my sciatica comes up. And, my job is sitting. So I really have to remember to get up, and up and down. Otherwise, by the end of the day, I'm humming along pretty good. Yeah, my leg's pretty hurting with that. Oh, that is so fabulous. They didn't even know you were going to be there. And they just happened to. That must have been nice. I hope that put a smile on your face, Crystal. It sounds like it made the end of your day just a little bit better and got you through to the end of that. That is wonderful. Very happy for you with that. Um, let's see. What is new in my world? Not too terribly much. I remember I have told you about my mom and her health, and they did finally got her on some blood pressure medication to raise her blood pressure, and it's working. I am so thrilled. Have no idea why they didn't do it earlier. I guess they just figured they wanted to figure out as much as they could without having it where it should be. I have no idea. I'm glad that it's back to where it should be. She does have sleep apnea, so she is getting a CPAP machine. And once she gets that, they're hoping between that, which will get her good oxygen at night because she has not been, and her oxygen during the day, hopefully that'll also raise her blood oxygen level, which is her other issue. If that happens, then her two issues will be solved. Well, they'll be managed. I want them solved. I want them to not just brush her off as somebody who's almost 75 years old. Your symptoms are managed well enough. This is what you get, you know? I want them to still keep digging and say, why is this happening? Can we address that? Maybe it's only going to be a managed problem. And I can accept that. But only if I see that they put the effort in to try and figure out what it is. I understand so far everything that they've done, all they've done is eliminate things. But with that big of an elimination, you'd think they'd be able to narrow it down just a tad bit, just a wee bit. I don't know. Just something to think about. It's something for my parents to think about. Ultimately, it's going to be their decision. I can only push them so much in terms of pushing their doctor, and asking for an answer. If they decide that they're going to be happy with the managed solution, then not much I can do about that. And I'll have to accept it. Getting ready for work. I heard from a little birdie, Shannon, that you're headed to Toronto. That is wonderful. I love Toronto. I've been there twice. Still not enough to see as much of it as I want to, because both times I was there for hockey tournaments. But I definitely would love to see some more. So send pics, send me pictures. Did you use a hot water bottle instead of a heating pad? It actually is better for you. It's moist heat with the hot water bottle, and it's better than just that dry heating pad. Woohoo! Will you fly safe? Get that passport stamped. Send me pictures from the market. Love to see what it looks like. Okay, guys. Well, don't know who else is going to show up today. People might sprinkle in. And did anybody get notifications about today? Hey, Jana, how's it going? I hope that people are getting those still. Channel news, guys. We have, and Janet, I don't know why this happened, but we officially have 222 subscribers. Yay! Almost 225, guys. That's what I'm reaching for. Almost 225. Share the videos, like the videos. Please hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't subscribed, if you're watching and aren't subscribed. and the bell for notifications. I am getting new content out. I've been researching even more. You guys would not believe my true crime research with my pedophile rings and the child pornography rings and the overlap and the serial killers. Holy moly. My mind is blown. Seriously. Researching some of these things and finding these connections and building a database with these people's names in it so you can cross-reference things and cross-reference dates and when they did things. It gets weird. It gets weird. And you'll just be going, oh my gosh. So it's this entire web, and I'm going to try and present pieces of the web. And then once I've kind of done those big chunks, and then I'll show how those two relate and then bring in more. Right now I'm kind of trying to decide what order to do them all in. And then we get worldwide. I'm really enjoying it. I know that's weird to say, but it's just really fascinating. I think it is anyway. So let's see. Okay, let's get going. Sexual assault statistics, guys. This is the United States only. Sorry to everyone who's not in the US, but I will be getting to other countries on Wednesday. I think that this definitely needs to be a two-parter. I think. I mean, I've got a lot of stats to give you and a lot of things to talk about. We'll just have to see how our timing goes, and how much we end up, having to do on the next one. But we separated this into men and women, and then there's further separated by age, race, different types of things. And we're going to go through these step by step. Because as I was looking at these, as I was going through these numbers, it really is amazing on some of these breakdowns. And I'm going to say, take these numbers as an estimate. They are a survey. So, of course, it's based on people who are self-reporting and people who are willing to come forward with the information. We're going to get into some estimates, probably not till Wednesday, of number of assaults reported versus how much aren't reported. So those are going to be estimates based on what they get from, say, calls to adult or children protective services, and a lot of factors they use to help try to do that estimate of non-reported abuse. So that we're definitely going to get into on Wednesday. Today, however, and I do have a few charts that I may share with you. Most of the information I got from the CDC. The reason being is they seem to have the most recent comprehensive survey out there. It was done in 2022. Now, this looks at data, though, from 2016 and 2017. It's kind of weird. They do these surveys every few years. So 2025, they might do another one, or maybe they did another one this year, but it wouldn't be published till next year. And then they'll use the data probably from 2019, 2020. So it's always definitely off that way. There were some other ones that looked like they were published earlier, but when I looked at their sources, the information is from 2018, 2015. So you really got to be careful when you're looking at information and statistics on the internet, and you have to look at where did they get their information from, and seeing how old it is and comparing that and trying to compare apples to apples, because it isn't always. Because what's your survey population? How many surveys did you send out? So how good is your data going to be in general, to base all these numbers off of? So be very careful when you do any of this. Misha, so happy to see you. Glad you're here. We have just started. I've not gotten into any numbers yet. So I'm going to give you percentages, and we're going to talk numbers in terms of billions of people. Keep in mind, for the US population, they used about 125 million at this point. So that's what the numbers are out of. Not that it makes a huge amount of difference, but I wanted you guys to know that. So everything that I'm going to be discussing is lifetime. They also did do a survey like in the last 12 months. Did any of this happen to you? And they do have numbers that are about that. And I will link this, the survey that I mainly am talking about today. I'll link that in the description. I have not as of yet, but I will. And you can look at it for yourself. There's a lot of great information in it. And I wasn't able to find the 2020 version. I found some pieces that referenced it. So I have a few numbers that we can go back to and compare from their 2020 survey, which used 2015 and 2016 data. So we'll see where let you see kind of how things have changed a little bit. And some of the other ones after we go through this, I'm going to reference, and we'll see how those compare as well. Because again, I've got data from 2015 and 2018 that most of it is referencing. So the Center for Disease Control, CDC, they always publish one. There is, and it is called the National, for frick's sake now, National Intimate Partner and Sexual Violence Survey is what it's called. And it's abbreviated NISVS. And the last one was put out just a couple of years ago. Now, for women, lifetime. The way this is split down, contact sexual violence includes all the categories that they looked at, okay? And those categories are rape, attempted rape and completed rape, sexual coercion, unwanted sexual contact, and sexual harassment in public. Now, for men, there's an additional category, and that's made to penetrate somebody else, whether that's another male or a female. So when we're looking at our totals, okay, all of those categories combined, and this is for everybody, for all the races, for women, it comes out to over 1 in 2 women in their lifetime will have some form of contact sexual violence. 1 in 2. Actually, 54.3% to be precise. Over 50%. That boggles my mind. And this is one of those stats that I wanted to see about the previous survey, what they had. And since I couldn't find it, I couldn't find that number. I only was able to find the numbers from the 2020 survey for the rapes for men and for women. Oh, Asha, Misha, I'm so glad you're releasing your new video. That's wonderful. Rest, just listen. You don't have to participate, and feel better, Misha. Right, Janet? That amounts to nearly 68 million women. That's the US. Wait until we get worldwide, guys. Wait until we get worldwide. And yes, Deaudrey, Africa leads the charge in terms of continents. with the biggest percentage in terms of sexual violence. So we'll break that down a little bit more on Wednesday, because national statistics or international statistics is what I want to get into on Wednesday, as well as, unless we have time today, some of the statistics having to do with reporting, prosecuting, and conviction. So it's kind of a piece that I wanted to look at as well, separately. Oh, you thought Africa would be on the top? Yeah, unfortunately it is. And I'm not so surprised either. Attitudes there are still very, very, very patriarchal, and their laws are behind the times, unfortunately. Right, right, Janet. We're going to get there. We're going to get there in terms of how many men are perpetrators, and how many percentage are women perpetrators. So we'll get there. That's kind of a category at the end. Let's talk about the men for just a second, and then we're going to go kind of down through the women and down through the men. But just to talk about the men, in their lifetime, approximately 1 in every 2.5 men will suffer some form of sexual violence in their lifetime. It's 30.7%, or just over 36 million men. Think about that. I had 2.5. It's 3.5. Should be 1 in 3.5. I'm bad. No, 1 in 3 is a third. 1 in 4 would be 25%. So yeah, 3.5. So it's 3.5. One of the things that I didn't look at is they do have statistics for military people, but it's just who's assaulted within the military. So it wasn't giving me any sort of statistics. I'm sure I could find them, but that would be a definite bigger research project if I wanted to look at some of the stuff, be about the wars. The penetration is anything, Mac or Crystal. The penetration is anything. They, here, I can do this for you guys real quick so that we're all in the same background. So I'll read this. Rape is any completed or attempted unwanted vaginal for women, oral or anal penetration through the use of physical force. Threats to physically harm includes drunk, high, passed out. Yep. The rape includes penis, fingers, object. Yeah. And so same with being made to penetrate, same thing. Sexual coercion is any unwanted sexual penetration that occurs after somebody's pressured in a non-physical way. So they're not being held down. Their arms aren't being bound or anything like that. Coercion, words, manipulation. Unwanted sexual contact is any contact other than penetration. Okay. So it includes fondles, kiss, grab, touch, whatever. And then just sexual harassment. So anything that made you feel uncomfortable, that was, a sexual sort of comment or suggestion or behavior or something that made you feel uncomfortable. So we're kind of going down, excuse me, on the severity level scale, we're going down as we speak in regards to these. So there's your definition so that we're all on the same page. And I want to get back down to my tables here. So that is where I have some other numbers that I wanted to go over with you guys too here. So there. Okay. Jen Marie, how are you? Where are you? Are you in Wixom or are you in Detroit? Hmm? So glad to see you. Oh my goodness. So let's go back up here. So let's talk about women a little bit, and we're going to talk about the races, okay? And then we're going to talk about men and the different types of behavior, and we're going to talk about races. And then we'll talk about types of perpetrators and ages and things of that nature after that. You're in Detroit. Okay, how's the packing going? I hope well. If I could be helping, I certainly would be. Unfortunately, I just started a job. Let's see, women, okay? Women. This is where we get our typical 1 in 4, right? I hear that a lot. 1 in 4 women in their lifetime will be raped or attempted rape. And it's over 1 in 4. It's 26.8% or 33.5 million of us. And that is up from 1 in 5 from the survey that they completed and published in 2020. So that is going up. It is going up. Yeah, moving's a bitch. It really is. But at least you're getting a chance to like weed your stuff out and clean, and hopefully you've got that kind of time instead of just throwing everything in and trying to move it off. Jen, it depends. The 1 in 3 and 1 in 6 numbers that get thrown out a lot, those really are more for kids, the under 18, like that 1 in 6 number. Like you said, for contact with men, it's 1 in 3.5. For women, it's 1 in 2. And that's sexual contact. A lot of times when I find some of these numbers, I'm finding them for different years, or it's different ages. People are meaning different things. So you really gotta be careful when you're comparing these and going, oh, but I thought it was that. That is why I chose to stick with the numbers just from this. I do have a couple other sites pulled up for comparison, but I'm glad things are working out a little bit better for you, Misha. Ugh. See, look at this. He is a well-known elder of the church and a city councilman, this person who made a nasty comment towards Misha. That is just unfrickin' called for. Did you elbow him in the throat, said Jen. Absolutely. My goodness. Some people have no manners. Okay, just to do a comparison so you have an idea for men, for rape, and this is rape and attempted rape, it's 1 in 26. And these are adults. Keep in mind, this is just adults I'm talking about here. So that's 3.8% or nearly 4.5 million. 4.5 million. And that is up from 1 in 33 from the 2020 survey. 1 in 26, up from 1 in 33. And again, I read some papers debating why there was the increase, because there was a market increase. And a couple of things, standards that we say, people are more comfortable, they're going to, they're reporting things now. The Me Too movement, they said that particularly from this time frame, probably did a lot to help. People were bringing their stories forward. They felt more comfortable. So it's very possible that we're going to continue to see this number go up, up, up. At what point does it stabilize or go down? I don't know. That'd be interesting. It'd be really interesting when it starts going down to look at our national stage and say, is this number really going down because we've educated people enough that we are affecting this number and that it's actually going down? Or did something happen in our climate where people aren't being willing to talk about it again? I hope to goodness we don't go back there. But those are the types of questions we'll have to ask ourselves to make sure that we're looking at something that could be a real positive, that it's gone down. Has it gone down because of our efforts? I certainly hope so. I certainly hope so. Okay. Let's look at the different races for a minute. And they split this into Hispanic, Black, White, Asian Pacific Islander, American Indian / Alaska Native, or multiracial. Okay. And when they're talking about these percentages, well, it'll get interesting. Let's put it that way. So let's talk about the women. What do the percentages look like for the women for rape? Because they didn't break it down for the overall, so we just have it for the inner ones. Hispanic was 19.7%. Blacks were 29%. Whites were 28%. Asian Pacific Islanders were 17.2%. So Hispanics and Asians and the Pacific Islanders, roughly the same, within a couple of percentage points of each other. Black and white, very, very similar, within a percentage point of each other. Then we get to the American Indians, Alaska Natives, and the multiracial. Similar, they're within a few percentage points of each other, but look at where they are. American Indian, Alaska Native, 43.7%. 43.7%. And the multiracials, it was 48%. Now, these numbers aren't meant to add up to 100. It's how many within their, within this Hispanic community. It's not the percentage out of the total. Okay. I had to work those numbers out to figure, because I'm like, wait a minute, you're adding this up and I've got like 200%. This doesn't make any sense. That's how they're doing it. I'm really struck by, you go down each of these categories and the percentage difference for these last two categories, the American Indians, the Native Alaska Natives, and the multiracial category, they're always the top. They always have the biggest percentage. And I can't say I'm real surprised. I knew about the problem, and I've known about problems on the reservation. Alcoholism is really, really a big problem on the reservation, as I do know some drugs are. Depending on the reservation, different drugs are a problem there. Jen, I am so thrilled for you for moving. I think it is going to be such a good move. You're going to be out of the city. you're going to be out in nature a little bit more. I think I'm really happy for you. I really hope it's going to be, I really hope it's going to be good. And even though you're moving to a different place, at least, you're still staying in the Detroit area. It's not like you're moving different states or moving across country. So you're still staying within the same place, if you know what I mean. At least I think so, in general. Kamala Harris was here in Grand Rapids yesterday. They were both in Michigan. I think it was yesterday. David's mom told us. We had no idea. Nature can be very, very healing. Yeah, see, Mock and Jen get it. Yep, absolutely. And you got a lake. She's got a lake across the street, guys. You want to start painting, you got a beautiful area for it. I'm very, very happy. And I'll be visiting 100%. You have to visit me too. All right, let's talk a little bit more about some of these stats. Again, sexual coercion. Hispanics and Asian Island Pacific, very close to each other, 16.8% and 18%. Black and white, 23.8%, 25%. Still pretty close. And then you get to the American Indians, Alaska Natives, the multiracial, 32% and 39.5%. Yeah, I just said the racial categories are a mess in South Africa, but I do miss the diversity now and then of a land of very white people. If you guys don't know, DeAndre is in Ireland now. So, yes, I moved from South Africa to Ireland, and now very, very white. You know what? I don't know. DeAudrey, are you amongst the white people or are you standing out amongst the white people? Because I don't know. If it's the latter, I know how you feel. When I lived in Kenya, it definitely was, the opposite then for me with that. Very, very weird. Very weird. Yeah. So let's move on. Let's talk about unwanted. You're white, so you're basically transparent. Jen, it gets worse. I know. Sorry. Unwanted sexual contact. Sexual coercion overall for all the races, nearly 1 in 4, 23.6%. Unwanted sexual contact for all the races for women, 1 in 2. Almost 1 in 2, nearly 47.6%. So almost 1 in 2 unwanted sexual contact. This is interesting because people with the lowest percentage are the Asian Pacific Islanders, and that's 17.2%. Next are the blacks and the whites, and we're very close together at 29% and 28.1%. Then you've got the Hispanics at 34.8%, 1 in 3. Wow. That's almost 1 in 3. But again, then we get to the American Indians, Alaska Natives, and multiracials, and our percentages just skyrocket, even from the Hispanic standpoint. The American Indians and Alaskan Natives, 58.1%, guys. Unwanted sexual contact. Females. And for the multiracials, 67.3%. Yeah. It's I'm pretty much vampire white in the winter. Wait until we get to about February. Yeah. Definitely definitely for the zombie, for me, I just all I need would be the darker stuff, the white. I had definitely. Okay, so sexual harassment sexual harassment in public. So this is the last one. Of everybody, about 1 in 3.5. 30.4. 30.4. Sexual harassment in public. Interestingly enough, there wasn't, I mean, between Hispanic and multiracial, yeah, it's a gap. You go from 1 in 4 to 1 in 2. But overall, definitely not as disparate as, say, the sexual coercion or the unwanted sexual contact. We've got Hispanics with the lowest at 23.3%. Then you've got Blacks at 26.2%, whites 31.8%, Asian Pacific Islander 34.4%, American Indian, Native Alaska 40.7%, multiracial 48.2%. So that is of the women. The multiracial category, with them being the highest in everything, the highest by like a lot. They're at least like 1 and 2 on almost everything. Wow. It's very weird to me. I really had no idea. And it would be interesting to research and see if people have researched this issue to find out why such a huge gap. I don't know if it's because people of both races feel comfortable like abusing the person. That they get it from more angles. I don't know. That's it's really, really weird. Oh, the Kenyan people I've met are just absolutely wonderful as well, DeAudrey, because that's where I lived, and I absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved it over there. They're not hard to understand. I don't know. I had a lot of professors from Africa when I was in college, and for some reason their accent is just really easy for me to understand. I never had a problem with it. Some people had a real tough time like taking notes because I couldn't understand them. To me, it doesn't matter what coast you're from. I don't know, for whatever reason, it's just easier for me to understand. Let's talk about the men in this world, the men in the different races. How does this work? We've got numbers for most of everything. As we said, the rape of all the races, it's 1 in 26, and it's 3.8%. The men things in general did not vary quite as much as they did for the women. In a couple of these categories, for a couple of these races, you'll see definite disparate numbers, right? But in general, it was a lot closer than I thought it would be. So for rape, that among men, the Hispanic, and again, I think you need to treat these numbers with a grain of salt, because even though people are more comfortable reporting, you've still got a huge stigma with men reporting, right? So, and then you've got, when we go down these percentages, you've got men of different races and how they are perceived, if they were to divulge. And so that, can make it even more difficult. Let's see. So for rape, Hispanic, 3.2%, Black, 2.9%, White, 3.9%. No data for the Asian Pacific Islanders or the American Indians, Alaska Natives. The multiracial, unfortunately, 6.3%. And they are still the highest. In general, most everything multiracial is still the highest by a really good amount. Yeah, so you'll continue to see that. Made to penetrate category, 1 in 10. 1 in 10. 10.7%. 10.7% reported that they were made to penetrate somebody else. Hispanics, it's 10.8%. Blacks, 15.7%. Whites, 9.6%. Asian Pacific Islanders, 8.4%. American Indian, Alaskan Native, 14.4%. Now that's pretty close with the blacks, right? The 15%. And then you have the multiracial, and it goes up to 22.8%. So again, the multiracial is significantly higher. Significantly higher. 6-7 percentage points higher. Unwanted sexual contact. Nearly 1 in 4 men of all races. So it's nearly 1 in 4, 23.3%, or 27 million men in the United States. This is interesting that in general, these numbers are fairly close together. Again, multiracial is still higher, but not as much. Hispanics, you've got 22.5%. Unwanted sexual contact. Hispanics, 22.5%. Blacks, 20.8%. Whites, 23.8%. So very close. Asian Pacific Islanders, 21.5%. Again, very close in there. Now you're going to get to your last two categories, and you are going to see a jump, but it's not as high of a jump. And the percentages are close, fairly close, between American Indians and multiracials. We've got 29.2% and 32.7%. So still, when you're talking about between 20.8% in the blacks and 32.7% in multiracial, that's a pretty decent jump there, right? We got at least 12, almost 13 percentage point, or 12 percentage points. So it's a decent, decent chunk of people. Again, so high. And when we talk about sexual harassment in public, we've got 1 in 10, 10.9%. Again, between everybody but the multiracials, it's a fairly close numbers. Hispanics, 9.7, Blacks, 12.2, Whites, 10.7, Asian Pacific Islanders, 10.8, American Indian, Alaska Native, 8%. And then we've got the multiracials, 22.9%. Much, much higher. So much higher. Very, very much bothers me. I don't know either. With the not trusting somebody with a different accent, they're just from a different place. I mean, it's where they grew up. You know, I mean, somebody could grow up and have an accent from, I don't know, Morocco, and they've lived in the United States since they were 16. You know, but they may still have a very thick accent. Okay. Oh, Crystal, that is so wonderful. See, this is why we do what we do. Crystal's been sharing her story in the chat, and she said the first time she shared in public, there was a teen in the audience who had just been assaulted the night before. She broke that night and was able to start her healing journey. It's so important. And that's why I'm excited about this channel. I'm excited about being able to, get the word out, because the more people like that find us, that can start their healing journey, whether they start it with us or not, they know that there's a place that they can go wherever they are, wherever they have access to internet, they're going to have access to support. And that's so, so important to me. No, there isn't. At least not that I found. But now that I'm going through these stats even more, it's something I want to dig into, Audrey. I really want to find out, why is this multiracial so much higher, than all the others? Oh, Jenna says, I know someone who is Canadian indigenous. They look a bit East Asian, East Indian, Hispanic. Someone yelled at them to go back where they came from. Absurd. Racism is alive and cancerous in Canada. Yeah, it's like yelling at the Aborigines in Australia, right? Go back where you came from. We were here before any of you. Same with Indigenous Canadians. They were here a lot longer than any of they were here before the person yelling at them was. I guarantee you, right? Guarantee you. Let me now pull to, I think you guys find this quite interesting as well. Let me get my correct table up here. So it got a bit tedious copying some of this information to my own file. So I'm going to be reading off a table. So if I miss some of your chats for a minute, I apologize. We're going back to women, okay? And this is divided by type of perpetrator, okay? So for rape, sexual coercion, and unwanted sexual contact, we're dividing them. So for rape, women, 39.3% said it was a current or former intimate partner. 16% said it was a family member. 4% a person of authority. 56.1% said it was an acquaintance. 9.6% said it was a brief encounter, and 12.1% said it was a stranger. So you can see, when you're looking at between acquaintance, family member, person, current or intimate partner, that is your vast majority vast, vast, vast majority of the type of perpetrator that attempts to or completes a rape on a female. So when we say most people know the person that assaulted them, these numbers are going to show that. Sexual coercion, get this. Current or former intimate partner, 58.3%. An acquaintance, 41.8%. Interesting, a family member, it drops down to 9.1%. Brief encounters, 4.6%. Stranger, 4.7%. Person of authority, 10.1%. I was interested on that family member is only 9.1%. It's an interesting statistic, because I wonder, like on the kids, if they would have included that. Oh, this is for, okay. So these are based on first time violence. Okay. So when we say in lifetime, they're limiting to first time violence. What's a brief encounter? A brief encounter, I think, is going to be like, you went out on a date, or you met up with somebody. So they're not an acquaintance. So you haven't gotten to know them that well, but you did speak to them for some way. Maybe a brief encounter would be, speaking to the bag boy at the grocery store or something like that, running into somebody and just in line at the coffee shop. That's going to be a brief encounter. So unwanted sexual contact for females, current or former partner, 16.8, family member, 22.9, person of authority, 9.4, acquaintance, 59.9%, brief encounter, 11.7, stranger, 22.4. Interesting numbers. Here, I'll give you for brief encounters, it includes people who are briefly known, someone you met at a party, blind date, met online, known by sight, like a taxi driver or the concierge or, the door person at your building. A service provider comes over to, fix a TV or something like that. That's how they're doing brief encounters. It's curious. Unwanted sexual contact, the way people reported. So this is going to be first time unwanted sexual contact. Majority of people are reporting that it was by an acquaintance. Somebody they knew, not extremely well, but knew fairly well. Excuse me. That was a bit surprising to me. When you look at the male numbers, though, what I am surprised, I don't say surprised, but I guess because I didn't have any former thought on it. So, but it's very interesting to compare these to the men's numbers and see that they're not so different in terms of the categories. So for the rape, for the men, the current or former partner, 12.5%, family member, 16%, person of authority, 9.2%, acquaintance, 57.3%. Brief encounter, 12.8%. Stranger, 13.7%. So everything else is like almost within line. An acquaintance, phew, over 1 in 2 people said it was their acquaintance who was the perpetrator of their rape. When you compare that to women, it was 56.1%. So for acquaintance, for male and female, that is the vast majority of what people are reporting. We'll do that one last. Let's compare the sexual coercion. Current or former partner for men, 45.8%. Family member, 5.3%. Person of authority, 10%. Brief encounter, 6.8%. Stranger, 4.2%. Acquaintance, 49.1%. So the vast majority of people are saying it's either an acquaintance or it's a current or former partner. That's sexual coercion. Let's look at the females. What do we have? 58.3% for the women for current or former partner, 41.8% for acquaintance. Again, right in line with the men. Unwanted sexual contact for men. We have current or former partner, 9.2. Family member, 8.3. Person with authority, 7.2. Brief encounter, 11.1. Stranger, 21.9. And an acquaintance, 62.4. So overwhelmingly, the unwanted sexual contact for men was by an acquaintance. Now, for women, let's see. For women, it definitely was 59.9% on the acquaintance side, but the family members and current family members were up there. And again, stranger, 20%, 21%, 20%, men, female. They're very much in line. Now, here's the one I left for last. And this is made to penetrate because this is only a male category. Current or former intimate partner, 26.3%. Family member, 5.9. Person of authority, 5.9. Brief encounter, 14.3. Stranger, 10.4. Acquaintance, 62.2. So overwhelmingly, it was an acquaintance. Next in line would be current or former partner at 26%. I guess I'm not surprised if I'm to look at those numbers for the men, because in general, we know the person who is our abuser, regardless of what category it's in, right? And all the numbers are showing this out for men and for women. It is a truth. So I'm not so surprised at that. Now, here we get to the sex of the perpetrator. Are they male or female perpetrators? Let me go through here. Okay. Mock says multiracials aren't really part of any tribe or club, so they're easier targets for attacks as well as accusations. Yeah, Mock, I think you're right. And I think, because multiracial, they're not dividing it into multiracial, which races, which mixed races. So you got a lot of people, and people who don't fall in one category or the other, right? They don't fall into this race or that race. Sometimes their race, the race they feel that they grew up in, whether that was predominantly their mothers or their fathers, or, they may feel more of an identity to that, but that race may reject them because they're biracial. It's difficult. It's very difficult for them. Audrey says Indigenous Canadians seem to be having a hell of a time the last few decades. They've been having a hell of a time for over 100 years. Janet might be able to speak a little bit more to this, but from what I know, from the time that they started targeting them, turn of the century, early part of the century, to have them assimilate and work on white people projects and things like that, they've always been taken advantage of. Very, very vulnerable population. Very unfortunate. I feel for them greatly. All right, so here's one of the things you guys wanted to know. What about the sex of the perpetrators? Well, we don't have numbers for female-only perpetrators, but we know that 94% are male. And that jives pretty much with other years. They're in the high 90s, high mid 90s. So that hasn't changed a whole lot since data I found in 2018 and 2015, last 10 years or so at least. Rapes where there was a male and a female perpetrator, 2.4%. So if we extrapolate, we would basically say it's like, what, 96.4, so that makes it 3.6% would be female-only perpetrators. If we're just to add the two and and subtract from 100. 3.5% basically for female perpetrators only. Sexual coercion, men, 93.6%, again, overwhelmingly. Female perpetrators only of sexual coercion, 0.9%. So not quite one, but I mean, not quite 1%, but still, I think you're going to see this number go up as people recognize and come to terms with the fact that females can be perpetrators. They can be child abusers, and they can be abusers of adults, male and female. And I hope that you're going to find these numbers coming out more, and particularly the adult female on female. Now, this is something you really have not heard a lot about. And the numbers in the I don't know if you want to say the numbers in the LGBTQ plus community, because both those females don't need to be a part of that group, right? You could have a straight, one of them could be straight. To be an abuser, you don't have to necessarily identify as somebody you would normally have sex with in terms of vis-a-vis the person you're abusing. Unwanted sexual contact, men, again, 90%. Sexual coercion, male and female perpetrators, 2.3%. So about the same as along with the rape. Interesting. Unwanted sexual contact, female perpetrators only, 0.8%. Male and female perpetrators, 4.8%. So interestingly growing category, I think, is this male and female perpetrators. So whether there's multiple people. It's something that they didn't really track before. I'm not sure how long they've been tracking the male and females. But I know in past decades, it's not something that they've historically tracked. So that was all for women. What does it look like for men? What does it look like for men? For men survivors, male survivors. I'm reading your comments real quick. Lots of discussion about the multiracial people. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Crystal says not many people talk about having a female abuser. In a lot of ways, it's more shameful. At least that's how I perceive my situation. And I don't know, because I did not have a female abuser, but I don't know if it'd be more shameful, or it's just, as much as people aren't believed when they report a sexual assault, sexual abuse of some sort, getting the idea across that females can be abusers beyond a mother abusing her child. People don't want to think about that in a sexual way, that a mom can abuse their child in a sexual way, male or female. But I think it's easier for them to believe that than they are an acquaintance or a stranger or somebody in authority, or any of these other categories, these other types that we're talking about. Oh, that was type. You're talking male and female. Yeah, I think you're going to continue to see it come up. As we recognize sexual assault, and we recognize the extent of sexual assault and what it encompasses and who it encompasses. And as we really come to understand, digest the fact that an abuser can be anybody, any race, any age, any gender, any sexual orientation. It can be anybody. And going over your stats, though, you're more likely to be this or that, but it still can be anybody. And I think that's why you're going to see the reporting. I think you're still going to see these numbers going up till at least 2030. That's my gut feeling. I don't know when they'll ever start going down, but I think till at least then. So here are some interesting numbers, guys. Very interesting. For male survivors, 76.8% said that they had a male perpetrator that raped them or tried to rape them. So 76.8% were male perpetrators. So male on male. For rape, what do we get for female? 10.4%. 10.4%. Think about that, guys. Rape is penetration. So that means those females, they're penetrating that male somehow. 10.4%. And then male and female perpetrators, 9.6%. I don't know that I expected the female percentage to be that high for the rapes. But let's keep going. I think you guys' jaws are going to drop the next few times that I do some numbers. Real quick, just side note, Janet confirms that yes, the Indigenous Canadians have been oppressed for over 100 years. Yeah. Oh, wow. I didn't know the residential system went that early. I thought it was the turn of the century. Oh my gosh. So, in an effort to assimilate the Indigenous Canadians, the Canadian government set up these basically boarding schools. They were called mandatory residential school system. They're basically boarding schools. And so they took the kids from their families and put them in these places, and they couldn't worship their religion. They couldn't speak their native language. Most of them didn't know English when they got moved to school, and they were very harsh, and filled with a lot of abuse and a lot of horrible abuse. So, very, very vulnerable population. I think it's a really good point, Mark. Mark says, just think about how much societies rely upon women for care work. So women being abusers is scary because you have to rethink your entire care system in society. Yeah, it yeah, we don't like to think, our moms are supposed to be the nurturers. You're right, the carers. And to think that they're capable of harm. That's a scary thought for a lot of people. Oh, was it named Roy? Was it Roy Picton? He was a Canadian serial killer. No. Crystal's cousin spearheaded the whole project. Oh, wow. So this guy in Canada, he was a serial killer. He was a pig farmer, basically. And he would lure women to the farm through various means, prostitutes, but also him and his brothers used to throw these huge free parties. And, he drug the women and then assault them and feed them to the pigs ultimately. So it was real lucky that they were able to catch him, because he operated under the radar for quite a long time. I believe his victims were in the 20s in terms of count number, I think, at least. Okay, but just because we're talking about it, I'm going to share this now. So, and then I'll get back to the men victims, our male survivors. John Wayne Gacy, 33 bodies recovered, probably killed many more. All kids 12 to early 20s type of thing. I was reading something about this because I was reading how he got his victims. Very fascinating, by the way. And then I read his address. I don't think I'd ever seen his full address in Chicago written out. Just that it was in whatever, little area they considered it. It's like Norfolk Park or something like that. They got Lincoln Park and Brookfield and this thing. But I'd never seen his actual address. Now, mind you, it was the early 70s, I think 73, 74, when Gacy was arrested. I got to get this right. It's important. Let's see what Wikipedia has to say. Oh, let's see. He murdered his first victim in 1972. Oh, 1978. I didn't realize it was that late. I thought they got him earlier. But first victim in 1972 makes total sense. Murdered at least 30 victims after his divorce from his second wife in 1976. Wow. So of those 33, one in 72, two by 75, and then the rest of them after between 76 and 78, end of 78. Whew. Okay. Let me get back to my point. I was born in 72, guys. So 6 years later, my dad's out of the house. We're living in upstate New York by this time. My grandfather is still living at his address. The youngest child, my dad's sister, would have left home by then, but my grandfather was still at his address. They were like 3 blocks away from John Wayne Gacy, people. I looked at these numbers and went, da 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 da, West Sunnydale Avenue. So I quick called my dad and I said, what was your number? What was your house number on Sunnydale? Was it west, east, north, south? What? He's like, no, West Sunnydale. And he gave me the number and I was like, holy frick-a-frack. My jaw dropped. I just was stunned. Absolutely stunned. Yeah, monsters do live among us, don't they? And I'll speak about this when I do these presentations, but there's a child pornographer by the name of John Norman, and he hid away in the Chicago area for a while in one of the suburbs called Homewood. Now, Homewood is where my mother is from, and this was in the early 70s. Again, I was born in 72, and I need to ask my mom what time Nana and Papa moved from Homewood, because I'm wondering if they were there at the same time he was. Scary. I don't know what street they lived on, so I want to find out, see if I can find out where Norman was and see how close it was to my grandparents. Just frightening. I mean, you never know who's down the street. Your cousin's a she too? And it was a she? She broke the case? That's awesome. The Picton case. Oh my gosh. That is so, I would love to speak to her. I would love to speak to her. If you think she'd be interested in being on the show, or at least speaking to me, let me know, Crystal. Is she still alive? I'm fascinated by these people. They're just wonderful. Congrats to your cousin. What an accomplishment. That is just absolutely fabulous. Yeah, because they were indigenous women, they were prostitutes, there were a lot of people who were living on what we consider Skid Row, and nobody cared. Police didn't care. In that area where he was getting all these people from, people were missing all the time. Whether they went back to where they came from or just went somewhere else or killed over a drug overdose, whatever, People went missing all the time, and they didn't care. And it wasn't until I think it was somebody who people in the area said, we don't know, she's been missing. And I think I think that's how. Oh, you don't even know how to got. Oh, it's through. Okay, got it. No worries, no worries. I just find it fascinating with these people, and to talk to them and see what things were like from their side of it, when they're going through their investigation and they're trying to piece the puzzle together, especially on something as famous as the Picton case. That's wow, that's really amazing. Okay, so off of the true crime, let's get back to our statistics. This I was surprised about. So again, I'm going to go made to penetrate last because it's the male only thing. Let's talk sexual coercion. Sexual coercion. Male perpetrators only, 17.6%. Female perpetrators only, sexual coercion, 71.7%. Overwhelmingly, the vast majority of men who said that they were sexually coerced into having penetrative sex was by a woman, by a female. And male and female perpetrators together, it was 8%. So about in line with the rape, 9.6%, and female perpetrators, 8.8% for sexual coercion. Unwanted sexual contact. This is really interesting, guys. Male perpetrators only, 34.4%. Female perpetrators, 47.5%. Male and female, 14.3%. Really interesting numbers. Yeah, Crystal, send me her name. Send me her name. And then that way I'll be able to recognize that, if I go through that case again. That would be interesting because, I have thought about, and I've talked to Janet about this, about doing something on the Indigenous women, the Canadian Indigenous women, the Indigenous population, as we were speaking, how vulnerable they are. And that case is just a prime example of just how throwaway these people and prostitutes, which is same in the U.S., considered throwaway people, and that the police tend to not care as much. And particularly when you're talking about cases that were the 60s, 70s, 80s, there was not the training that they have now. Really, that didn't start until the 90s. Some in the 80s, but it was really getting going much by later. Yeah, I don't know, DeAudrey. I don't know the role of the female in. They don't give that breakdown. We just have what their role was, whether they're family, whether they're an acquaintance, whether they're in a position of authority, which teacher would fall under. So I don't know how many are female. What we can say is, if you go back and look at the numbers, and so let's take let's see. Gotta do it here. Gotta go up here. Hang on, guys. So overwhelmingly, again, for sexual coercion and rape, it was an acquaintance or former or current partner that got the biggest numbers. Persons of authority had very low percentages in all of the categories, actually. So even when we're talking about made to penetrate, in terms of the role of the person, partner and acquaintance are the ones that are vastly outpaced the other ones. Picton finally died. He looked like I was on death's door when they arrested him. Yeah, unfortunately, I've seen this be a problem, Mark. Says, look at the language around boys getting harassed by older women. You know, I've seen this firsthand, actually. And it's really bad when there's a group of them, like a group of me, you know, my age, 40s, 50s, something like that. And you'll have 20-something, you know, kids. And I don't know if it's because of their age, because they're female, because of both, because the subject is male, that they think that any contact is going to be wanted contact. It's almost like they forget the rules of consent. You know, like, of course he wants it. Of course I'm not being offensive. I'm flattering him. You know, I'm touching him in a nice way. Not realizing that that could be very unwelcome. But it doesn't seem to stop them. We'll just call them cougars. It's very, very strange. I don't know if the numbers actually went down, Mark. They seem to be fairly stable. It's just not a huge difference between the years. Let me get to the men, though. So I talked about the unwanted sexual contact, the sexual coercion, how sexual coercion, female, overwhelmingly the perpetrators, reported to be the perpetrators. Unwanted sexual contact, and not quite even, but fairly, 34% to 47% male, female. So that's kind of like, you know, not quite half and half. Then we get made to penetrate. Male perpetrator, 17.9%. Female perpetrator, 69.6%. Male and female, 8.2%. So again, male and female stays roughly around the same as it does for the other categories. Female perpetrators, again, just like the sexual coercion, overwhelmingly 69.6% made to penetrate female perpetrators. Sexual coercion, 70.1% female perpetrators. So very close. For those two categories, the male perpetrators only, 17.9 and 17.6%. So almost identical. Same with the female perpetrators. And guys, keep in mind, this made to penetrate, we're talking made to penetrate by physical means. Held somebody down, did something physically to force them to have to do this. Now, that doesn't mean that they're physically stronger. Woman holding your arms down, if you're a man, okay? You're holding your arms down. Your arms are being held down. Just because you could overpower that person doesn't mean because you don't, you're giving consent. Right? This goes for male and female. Doesn't matter. Because that person might be in freeze mode. And that's okay. Right? That is totally okay. I was surprised in some respects. This is what surprised me the most. When you're looking at the numbers for the men, 70.6% of the rapes of men were done by men. But when you go to made to penetrate and sexual coercion, you flip that. So you're in the 70% for females doing it. So being raped, men are most often going to be raped by another man. However, if they're made to penetrate either a female or a female, if they're made to penetrate a female or a male, or they're coerced into penetration of a female or a male, overwhelmingly it's a female. Doesn't that tie in to stereotypes a little bit? Right? The women just won't go out and take, but we're going to try and convince you somehow. It's exactly. Men tend to be more outright violent perpetrators, while women learn to be sneakier and better at being underestimated, used to their advantage. And I think it's just because people don't think about female perpetrators in general. I mean, it's still a very small category when you speak to people and say, I'm going to talk to you about several different scenarios and tell me who in the scenario was the female and who was the male. And 9 times out of 10, or nearly 10 times out of 10, people are just going to have the male perpetrator, female victim, right? We need to get that out of our head. Although the sexual violence perpetrated on men or on women is overwhelmingly by men, we're seeing that there's at least 2 categories for men where the perpetrators are overwhelmingly female. I don't know if you guys heard this old riddle, and it's about how this doctor goes in and sees, and the patient on the table that they need to operate is actually their son. And while the operation is taking place, the father comes rushing into the hospital. And you say, how can that be? How can he be coming in the hospital at the same time the operation's going on? Because the surgeon's the mom, a female. But I remember when this came out, I remember when I was first told, it came out because I don't know how old it is, but I remember I was first told I was younger. I'm going to say under 20, in my teens or something. And I remember having a difficult time with it at first, going, huh. And then, of course, it dawned on me like, oh, how stupid am I being? How stereotypical am I being? And not being able to think outside that box. I think the more we're able to see outside that box on a regular basis. So when someone presents a situation to us, we're not immediately assuming that the perpetrator is female, the victim's or the perpetrator is male and the victim's female. We need to switch these up a little bit. I can't operate on this person because he's my son, right? Yeah. It was absolutely. And this is another thing. Crystal, you make a good point. You find as women, we don't like it when the swimsuit calendars come out, yet we do the same thing to guys when they have firefighter calendars come out. It's double standard. And we often have these, right? I mean, men have these as well in terms of things for women. And I think this is what you're seeing when we're talking about like the cougars and about like the unwanted sexual contact and the sexual coercion with men. Yeah, unwanted sexual contact, Deidre, is a very broad category. So that can be open to a lot of interpretation, and that maybe why you've got a lot more evenness between the male and female perpetrators on the male victim. That definitely could be in regards to maybe how the males see it. I did have one other set of tables I wanted to go through, and this is the ages. And it's the age of first contact. So among females, 17 and younger, 49%. So 49% of females state that their first sexual assault, or their first, rape, attempted rape, was they were 17 or younger. 83.4% of females said that they were 24 and younger. So it's going to include the 17%, right? So 18 to 24, it was 34.4%. And to me, that makes sense because you've got still young women who don't necessarily know how to protect themselves in the world. They're still going to be fairly new to the dating scene, to relationships, to boundary setting possibly. And they're college age. We've got a lot of people on college campuses or away from home for the first time, taking risks that they might not have otherwise taken if they lived at home. I see that difference with my son and his friends who are at college, and the things that they're doing with their lives and the things that my son is doing, vastly different. My son doesn't have a college party right next door that he can go to every weekend or something like that. Not that he necessarily would if he had the option for it, but it's not right there. Whereas it is for a good portion of his friends who went to college. So that temptation and that, that outlet to party and the drugs and the alcohol and all that, it's just a lot more prevalent and a lot more risk taking is going to be taken on a college campus type thing or dorm or wherever you've, moved to for those years. Only 15.1% of females said they were older than 25 and older when they had their, when they were first raped or attempted rape. Now, for coercion and unwanted sexual contact, 17 and younger, it goes down to 38.4%. Whereas the 24 and younger crowd, 73.5% reported. By the time they were 24, 73.4% of this population, 73.4% of the female population they surveyed were 24 and under when they had their first unwanted sexual contact or first sexual coercion. Again, those numbers make sense to me. With 35.1% being that 18 to 24. The numbers for 25 and older, 24.5%, a little bit bigger, but you're also got two categories and you've got a lesser degree of assault. So I can see how those numbers, have definitely increased there. When we go to men, we do see a very similar thing in terms of ages. So 56.6% of these men reported that their first rape or attempted rape was 17 and under. 86.1% reported that they were 24 or younger. So again, by 24, the vast majority of men have had that encounter. When we get to 25 and older, 12.2%. So it's much lower. Again, makes sense. We understand the 17 and younger, and it's about split between being 10 and under and 11 to 17. The numbers are pretty much the same. So not much of a difference in terms of how old you are under 17 for men. And by the time they're 24, that last percentage to get you pushed up to, this isn't even 1 and 2. This is 1 and 1.5. 3 out of 4. Over 3 out of 4, basically. When we go down to first sexual coercion or unwanted sexual contact, these are, again, fairly in line with the female numbers. So 17 and younger, 30.1%. 24 and younger, 61.3%. Now, this is the interesting part to me. 25 and older, 35.5% said that they had their first sexual coercion or unwanted sexual contact for men. 35% said that they were 25 or older. That's interesting to me. And the majority of that percentage, 22.7%, were for the 25 to 34. It drops to single digits for anything older than that. But so by 34, majority of this is going to happen. So that was a real different number. That was a very different number. I didn't expect to see. There are some other percentages that this report went through. It's a long report. It's 44 pages, but there's a lot of charts and things in it, and it is very interesting. It is an easy read, actually, if you are interested in this. Probably half of it is charts. But for women, now this was interesting, and this ties to our ACEs somewhat, because we're talking about all ages. We're not just talking about the kids. So at any age that you had some sort of contact sexual violence, they're saying, this is women, 23% reported they had asthma. Almost 13% reported they had irritable bowel syndrome. 40% difficulty sleeping. 32% chronic pain. 24% frequent headaches. 27% high blood pressure. 21% difficulty concentrating, remembering, or making decisions. Difficulty doing errands alone. 11.6%. Serious difficulty walking upstairs or climbing, 17%. So we look at these things and you can definitely see, and we've talked about this link between trauma and pain, and trauma and health conditions with ACEs, our adverse childhood experiences, and how that affects our life later on. in terms of our health. And you see this play out. Now, the numbers for men, fairly comparable in terms of the issues. And again, makes sense coming out of trauma. Asthma, 18.6%. I don't really know much of how that would correlate, but high blood pressure, 30%. Chronic pain, 30%. Difficulty sleeping, 36.5%. Difficulty hearing, 12.4%. That's interesting. Difficulty concentrating, remembering, making decisions, 20.4%. Again, that goes along with ADHD. It goes along with depression. It goes along with anxiety. And just general trauma effects. So not any of those, not surprising either. Not surprising either, but interesting to look through. I want to do an updated ACEs show because there's, since the original, which is the only one I talked about when we first did this way back, and I think it was like March. And I want to get Spanx on from the Lifeboat to talk about adverse childhood experiences. I think that would be good. There's been some more recent ones. The recent ones they've studied sections of the population. So one was Philadelphia, another was vulnerable, the vulnerable populations. So I'll go through that and kind of, and then how it relates. And I just read like last week about another ACEs study that was done. And it had to do with brain scans, I believe. So just great information there. And so if I can ever get connected with Spanx, that would be great. So that's another thing that I'm working on, guys. Another thing I'm working on. Looking at your things here. Looking at your talk chat. Aw. DeAudrey, I'm glad you learned how to pick a guy. Crystal, you fall under every one of those, the health issues that I was doing. Yeah, they're so common for all of us, right? I mean, of you subs that I know, something about, yeah, I see it in all of us. And again, we're going to go back to trauma in the body. It's something that I've asked for Bessel van der Kolk's book for Christmas, because I don't have my own copy, and I do like having paper, and I like writing my notes and highlighting and stuff like that. So that's something in the new year that I want to pick apart, and we're going to come back to trauma in the body time and time again, just because of learning how to release trauma in the body and hopefully heal the trauma, heal the body, right? That's the main goal with that. But also just recognizing how it can affect us. And from an education standpoint, especially for our younger generation or for our young parents there, and how critical those early years are for your child. If I knew now, if I knew then what I know now, yeah, so many things that I would do different. And I don't know that I would have gotten it right with a second kid, because then I'd still have my first one I was trying to raise, right? So I understand why you feel so much more equipped to be a grandparent, because you get to do all the good direction stuff, but you don't have them for quite as long, and you don't have to go crazy. Right. The IBS, insomnia, chronic pain, frequent headaches, so many of us. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's weird. I never thought about it much, but the IBS issue is extremely common. And that makes sense then, doesn't it? That we'd have digestive issues. or things related to digestion. I had never thought about it because it's not really something that I have a problem with. Sometimes constipation, but I think that is A, fiber, A, water, and B, water, and C, my medication. So we'll see how that goes. Oh, guys, I dropped down on my medication again. I wanted to tell you that. So I am now officially on 100 milligrams a day. So 50 in the morning and 50 in the afternoon. And then my doctor's replacement, because my doctor's on maternity leave, said you could be there for like 2 weeks and then you can just drop off. You don't have to do anything else. And I'm like, go from 100 to nothing. I've been doing this for 20 years. I was on 400. Are you insane? Picture, she looked really, really young. And so I'm just going to go with that for her. That if I was somebody who had been on this for maybe a year or even 2, I could see her saying that, but nope. We are going to do 50 in the morning and 50 at night, and then we are going to do, I don't know, 50 once a day, or maybe 25 in the morning and 25 at night, and then go to 25 once a day, and then I'll go to nothing. I think that's how I'm going to do it. Or I could do 25 and 25 and then go 50 once a day and then go down to 25 once a day. I don't know. We'll have to see. It did sound a little fast, didn't it, Deaudrey? Yeah, I was just not very comfortable with that because it's harder to quarter my pills. You kind of cut them in half, but then you're cutting your halves in half to get it down to quarters. So, and since mine's an extended release, I'm not even sure that that's working properly. All the medication totally mixed up in those pills so that if I take a quarter, I'm still getting everything that I should be. Were I taking a whole? Just lower dose? I'm not 100% sure. Yes. Digestion highly connected to emotion? You're realizing that yours is entirely stress anxiety based. Stress and anxiety really fucks with our body, doesn't it? I mean, hellishly. And yeah, absolutely with digestion issues. Because don't you either feel hungry or not hungry when you're really, really stressed out? People eat because they're stressed, or they don't eat because they're stressed. It definitely can make IBS or any of those digestion type of issues worse. Which then makes perfect sense if yours got worse during full-time caregiver stuff. Absolutely. Incredibly stressful job. It's just incredibly stressful. You even develop lactose intolerance and sugar sensitivity during your stress episodes. I would love to say I was surprised, but again, that cortisol, that stress hormone, is nasty. It really does a lot of nasty stuff to your body. It's horrible. So the more that we can, get a hold of our stress and calm ourselves down and keep ourselves in that calmer state, the better we are. But there's certain jobs, caregiver being one of them, that it's just going to be stress all the time. And that's whether you're caregiving for, somebody else who's an adult, or you're caregiving for a child. You've still got somebody who's relying on you. And that is for life, right? And it's extremely stressful. So, yeah, I've noticed as long as I get up and down and stuff, my sciatica is not too bad and I'm manageable. I have noticed it being a little bit worse now because I've put on some weight. I really don't like looking at my pudgy face. Um, but that's going to stop. Both David and I have a whole program. He's got his surgery. David, my roommate, he's got his surgery on the 29th, and he's finally getting his hernia fixed. So pre-op, there's all kinds of vitamins and stuff that you have to refrain from. And so we're taking this opportunity to refrain from all of our junk food as well and eating healthy for the next week and a half until his surgery. And going to continue it after his surgery, of course. And then he's going to be gone for 3 months after a couple of weeks after that, so mid-November. And I plan to continue it on after that by myself. So get a good 3 weeks. Thanks, Crystal. I think I have a pudgy face right now. I noticed the difference. And I didn't think I would really. One, it definitely could notice my jowls more. My face is more square instead of that lovely triangle shape from when you don't have jowls, right? There we go, triangle shape. That's how it's supposed to be. I realize how pointy my chin is at the very end, but yeah, when I'm thinner, it's just so I just notice I just notice them more. You guys are sweet. Thanks. I appreciate it. I think, again, we are always the most critical of ourselves. And so things that you guys might not even notice on my body, I do. And particularly for me, because I've been this weight and then I lost all that weight. And now I'm almost back to that weight again, which I don't want to be. I'll say David and I have had a lot of fun since he moved in. We've had a lot of fun. And we've eaten a lot of junk. And we have put more things in the air fryer than we probably should. But it's been good. It's been a good time. And I am just looking at it like that. I had a good time. We didn't watch our weight. He put on like 14 pounds. I put on like 20 something. It just, yeah, between both of us, we know that we've been bad. So we're going to get back on track. Back walking. We're definitely back walking. It is. It is. After being this weight for so long and then being thin for a couple of years, you definitely noticed the difference. And so, I mean, one just in my clothes, because I got rid of all my fat clothes, guys. And so the clothes that I have, there's some that I actually can't wear. And then there's some that I look a lot different in them than I did last winter. Let's put it that way, So I want to be down to where I feel more comfortable in my skin. And I know some people say, well, you look beautiful right now. You're fine. Your BMI is within what it should be. You got no worries. Just accept yourself and be happy in your skin. That's one option. I could be. But I know I'm not at my healthiest at this weight because I'm more fat than I am muscle. And I don't like that ratio. So to stave off heart disease and a whole bunch of other problems, I can look at my mom as an example as to how my weight might be. And I know that I need to get it back under control again. I see a lot of myself in my mom, just in terms of where we gain our weight and stuff. So if I was to keep going, I can just look at my mom and see what I'm going to look like. And that's definitely not something, it's not where I want to be. I don't want to be stick thin. I got to that point and that wasn't good. And I had to put some weight back on, but I want to be healthier, because even when I was stick thin, it was like I had my body had eaten myself. So I was mostly fat and not muscle, ate all my muscle, had just the bare minimum. And then everything on top of that, even though I was stick thin, everything on top of that muscle was fat. Right. So again, even at that thin weight, I needed to flip flop that body mass of muscle to fat ratio. And that's what I definitely do want to do. Mock got to healthy weight during pandemic because you raised your protein intake. That is definitely one thing that I've been working on. It's been very helpful with David cooking meals, and as we do so, we're freezing some more things so that I will have some things in the freezer when he leaves. And yeah, the protein level is definitely something both my son and I have to intake because he has got to put on muscle as well. So we're definitely over the next month doing everything we can to make sure I know all the tricks that I can to be putting in as much protein into things as possible. So absolutely critical, and so definitely right on that. I am feeling like I need to wash my hair again, and I really don't want to because it takes so long. Well, I probably should before my dinner. All right, guys, it's 5 o'clock. We've been doing this for a couple hours, and we have not gotten to our prosecutorial issues, reporting issues, convictions, things of that nature. So we're definitely going to do that on our next one, as well as getting into some world stats. I will leave you with something that I will open with next time. And I'll also have, hopefully, the world stat to do at the same time. But for us in the United States, every 68 seconds, an American is being assaulted. And that is based on 2016 and 2017 data. I found one that said 98 seconds, but that was based on 2015 data. So I don't know if current data, like 2024 data, or at least 2020 data, if that would show anything different, if we're going to see an increase with this. This is one of those things that I look at. This is a number we have got to get down. With education, we can do it. I know it's scary when we keep seeing these numbers going up and up and up, but I do think it's very realistic to say that that is because of awareness and because of people being more willing to come forward and the police taking people seriously. All of that combined, we're seeing our numbers go up. At some point, it's either going to plateau or we're going to start seeing that dip. We're going to start seeing the fruits of our labor of all this education that we're doing at the next generation and the next generation and the next generation. I'm so excited to see what Gen Alpha does with this. Where are their thoughts? So in another 10 years, as they've come up and they're graduating high school and they're getting into the workforce or college, how are they feeling about this? What's their generation thinking? That's where we be looking. We'll see. It'll be very interesting. You guys have a great rest of your weekend, okay? I will see you 6 p.m. Eastern Wednesday for our next live. We'll continue with our statistics and get a little more international on ourselves. In the meantime, remember, you are worthy, you are loved, and you are strong because you're a survivor. Most of all, you're loved just the way you are for who you are. Hugs and love from me. Mwah. Back out. Bye, guys.